Sport's been completely intertwined with concepts of masculinity, with manliness. The sport was essentially a way to demonstrate your manliness. And I think that these kind of old-fashioned ideas that have been in existence for over 100 years kind of create these ideas that the sport isn't really available for women. And that it's a masculine domain, and I think that influences coaches sometimes. I think it might influence parents in whether they let their daughters take part in the sport. And it's kind of breaking down these kind of ideas that have been around for a long, long time.
And it's certainly a challenge to try and undo a lot of the socialization that people have become accustomed to when it comes to sports. What's being done, and what also could be being done behind the scenes to try and break down some of those mindsets?
I mean, I think things like increased media coverage is really important. I talk to a lot of people who have maybe heard of things like the Legends Football League, which is a very kind of highly sexualized version of the sport, which is a real shame because they're simply not aware of women being able to play the very physical contact side of the game. So I think more media coverage would really help break that down. And I think education for coaches that there's no physiological reason why women can't play the game, even in some circumstances alongside male players. And I think it's getting that information out to coaches and parents that the sport is fantastic for women to play.
Now, one thing that we are seeing, especially among parents now, are trying to really pull their children away from American football because of the injuries. We've obviously seen a lot of mounting concern about head injuries and some of these long-term health effects. And we know that still people are willing to take that risk, including women. Is it still worth it, the trade-off of what comes with your health?
I mean, that is certainly a tricky one, and I think that parents have to make that decision for themselves. I think there needs to be more done to make the sport safer. I think the NFL are going that way more and more. But there are more things that could be done. I think that if a player gets a head injury, there should be no question that they stay out of the game. If there's even a question that they might have a concussion, they should come straight out and not go through the so-called concussion protocol. But a lot of sports are dangerous and have side effects and risks, and it's going to be a part of the game, and it's going to come down to individuals to kind of make those decisions.
And the NFL is slowly making changes, not just with safety, but also in terms of representation when it comes to women in football. We've seen now some female officials on the sidelines. How important is this to have this representation and this visibility of women on the sidelines as officials and as coaches?
I think it's fantastic, and it's in the past few years it's changed enormously. Jen Welter was amongst the first, and then we've got Katie Sowers at San Francisco, Catherine Smith at Buffalo. I mean, there's a lot more. And as a Brit, it's particularly nice to see Phoebe Schechter, our GB women's captain, take on a role at the Buffalo Bills. And these women are going to inspire others to take part.
And so what is the NFL doing to try and cultivate more women in careers in the NFL?
Well, they recently, back in February in Indianapolis, they ran the third Careers in Football Forum, which is a fantastic initiative, which actually Phoebe Schechter was involved in, and it takes women who are currently involved in the NFL, and basically they have breakout sessions. They speak to people involved in the sport, and the idea is that you develop more and more talented women and increase their profile and increase what women are able to do in the sport. And currently it's only available to people who are actually involved in the sport. It'd be nice to see them kind of go out there and actually try and attract the next generation of women coaches, scouts, general managers, that sort of thing as well.
And despite the name American football, we know that the US isn't the only country where we're seeing women taken to the football field. There have been several world championships. And in 2019, the IFAF Women's European Championship is scheduled in Great Britain this summer. So how is this growing international popularity really helping to promote and shape the role of women in this league?
I mean, from my point of view, the growth in this country since we've had an international setup has been enormous. I was involved with the national programme up until 2013, working with the men's non-contact side. And last year I was invited to go along and actually coach at the trials for the women's non-contact side. And so in the space of 5 years, between having no programme whatsoever, we had over 60 women trialling for the national side. And it's because there's an international program. It's because they've got the opportunity to be a world champion, to be a European champion, that these young women, want to be involved and take part in the sport. And I think there's only a limited number of countries at the moment who are actually involved. There's only going to be 6 teams at the European Championships. But I think the more it can grow, the more you're going to inspire people in those countries, just as it has done in this country, to take part in the sport.
Now, let's also look at other leagues, because obviously we saw the NBA create the WNBA, the Women's League there. What are some of the lessons you think that the NFL could learn from that?
I mean, that would be the absolute dream, would be for the NFL to have their own equivalent like the WNBA. There are fantastic female leagues out there already. The Women's Football Alliance have an incredible diversity in terms of range of teams across the country. That's in the US. So you don't really want to trample on what they're doing because they're doing fantastic work. But if the NFL came in and with their kind of money and the media that they would bring, I think it would revolutionize the game.
Well, you can always find these stories and more from Women at Work by going to our website. Just head over to america.cgtn.com and click on the Global Business tab.